Today I'm going to be doing my first ever Pokemon binder challenge. This idea was heavily inspired by Deep Pocket Monster. I absolutely love watching the binder challenge videos, they are addicting and I really wanted to try it myself. So I decided what kind of challenge did I want to do for my first Pokemon one. I didn't want to do something too easy, I wanted to see if I could achieve something that involved every single Pokemon to ever exist. So from Bulbasaur through to, what are we on? Scarlet Violet, Teal Mask, so Peacherunt. The Peach Pokemon from the Teal Mask DLC, the very cute one. I can't pronounce its name. So all the Pokemon from Bulbasaur number 1 to Peacherunt 1025, I believe. I set myself the binder challenge of, do I have a reverse holo of every single Pokemon from 1 to 1025? Now I already know I failed this challenge. I do not have one of every single Pokemon in a reverse holo from my bulk. I started collecting bulk properly from 2020. For the past couple of weeks I have been going through all of my ETB boxes, all of my bulk, picking out all of the reverse holos and seeing if I could put them in Pokédex order. Today, finally, I have had these delivered, which are the Volt X binders in the beautiful pastel blue, which was one of their summer collections, the big ones. I ordered 5 of them, which is massively overkill. I thought I would just buy my favourite colour and I can just keep adding to this and I will have basically a living deck. In an ideal world, I would have loved to have collected my favourite card of every single Pokemon, but that would be very expensive. I have sorted out all of my bulk ready in Pokédex order based on what I have, and then I'm going to basically spend the day filling these binders, which I think is going to take me a long time, especially needing to make sure that I'm leaving the right slots for the Pokemon that I am missing, also taking into account regional variants such as Taurus, Paldean Taurus, because that technically is still Taurus, so it should be there in the Pokédex order, if that makes sense. Just a side note, my bulk collecting started in 2020, so I think I've got a couple of ETBs from end of Sun and Moon era through to current Scarlet and Violet, so you can kind of do the math of how many ETBs that kind of is. I'm really excited to see what the final number is that I come to. Thank you to Deep Pocket Monster for the inspiration, all the binder challenges, they're so fun to watch. I'm gonna have a living dex of TCG Pokemon cards. That is so cool. Let's spend the entire day doing this because it's gonna take a long time. I did all my time lapses already of me going through my bulk, but here are the generations: Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 7, Gen 8, Gen 9. This is gonna take me hours! I'm now ready to go. It is miserable today in the UK. It's like a storm going on or something like that. Also, I forgot to mention, part of the challenge is that I didn't want to use reverse holos from the Scarlet and Violet era. I wanted the first generations to all have yellow borders, which made this challenge even harder because the majority of my bulk is actually Scarlet and Violet. The Scarlet and Violet Pokemon will have the silver borders. Everything else I wanted to have yellow borders. I didn't want to mix and match. Also, I realised that I have loads of sleeves, but I don't have any plain clear sleeves and I'm not mixing and matching. So we're gonna have some bad binder behaviour today. I'm just gonna put them in raw, and maybe one day when I actually have over 1,000 plain sleeves, I will go back and actually put them all in sleeves. It is now currently 2:30 on Sunday, the 24th of November 2024. Let's see how long it takes me to put probably over 1,000 cards into these binders in order. I'm gonna put a film on. My cat is so close to the pile of cards that are in order. Pablo, be careful.
Alright guys, we're going to be starting this time-lapse off with Generation 1. As you can tell, I decided to do a time-lapse whilst I was already halfway through going through my Generation 1 bulk, so sorry about that. I'll be honest with you guys, going through all of my ETBs from 2020 through to now, per generation each time, took so long, but definitely going through generation by generation was definitely the most sensible way to achieve this goal. So as you can see, I've put the Pokemon in Pokédex order to help me out later when they go into the binder. Here I've already started to pick out Pokemon that are regional variants such as Alolan Raticate, and I think Diglett and maybe Meowth pop up shortly. Yeah, there you go. Oh, and there you go, Hisuian Growlithe as well. But as you can tell, this was by far the most successful generation of reverse holos, which really doesn't surprise me. It's Generation 1, it's a fan favourite, there's always going to be plenty of these Pokemon released within the sets. Now for legendary Pokemon, I personally collect them separately, so I've got a different box for that. So I went through that, and this is the Generation 1 I managed to find. And then we've also got Paldean Taurus, because that's a Scarlet and Violet Pokemon technically, and it has a silver border. So I managed to find that as well. We're now moving on to Generation 2. Johto is personally my favourite region in the whole of Pokemon. I absolutely adore it, so I really enjoyed going through all of this bulk and just looking at the Pokemon. I personally wasn't too worried about Generation 2, mainly because of sets such as Astral Radiant and Brilliant Stars that coincided with the Pokemon Legends Arceus game. I found a lot of Generation 2 Pokemon were heavily featured in that. Overall, this particular generation I feel went pretty good. I really do like seeing all of the ETB boxes. I tried to keep stacked nice on the left hand side there, and that was my only legendary, was Entei apparently. I was a little bit gutted about that. And again, I've gone through and put them in Pokedex order. You saw the Hisui and Typhlosion there, again another regional variant that I had to look out for. Honestly, I just love looking at the art of these Pokemon. I think they're gorgeous, and look at that Teddy Ursa from Cosmic Eclipse with the Arceus statue in the background. It is so pretty. I always like to think that it hinted at Legends Arceus, but that's probably just my own personal theory. Okay, new day, new generation. I decided not to do all of the generations in one day. I think I would have gone absolutely mad, especially, like I mentioned, going through each ETB individually was horrible. It was just so bulky and just not particularly fun. Generation 3 was one of my main games I played growing up. Emerald was my first cartridge game that I played independently without the help of my brothers, and surprisingly here, it looks like we did really well. It's not my favourite generation, but I have very fond memories growing up with it. Two legendaries were Kyogre and Regirock there, but it looks like there was absolutely none of the starters. But still, overall, not a bad generation. Pokemon Emerald was actually the game where I found my first ever shiny Pokemon. It was a shiny Tentacool, and at the time I had no idea what shiny Pokemon was, and I thought it was sick because it was green, so I remember trying to put markers on it when it was in the PC, anything to try to fix it. It was such a fond memory for me. So yeah, Emerald, great game, great generation. All right, next up is Generation 4, which is my second favourite generation of all time. Some of my favourite Pokemon ever feature in this generation, such as Arceus and Shaymin. They are the games I played the most growing up as a child. Diamond and Platinum, I just absolutely was on them non-stop. I wasn't too worried about the TCG for this generation, mainly because, of course, with Pokemon Legends Arceus being set in an ancient version of Sinnoh, which was Hisui, we had sets like Astral Radiance and Brilliant Stars to be able to have plenty of these Pokemon to choose from. Now, in terms of legendaries for this, we managed to get 5 of them, which was pretty good. Speaking of 5, we're now moving on to the 5th generation, which was the Black and White era. This was the point in the challenge when I realised I was going to start to struggle. I find that Black and White Pokemon aren't always featured particularly heavily in the TCG, especially not recently. I appreciate it looks like there's a fair amount on my bed, but this generation was the largest out of all of the generations, I think. So with that in mind, I was a little bit cautious about this generation overall. Again, it looks great, like there's loads of cards on my bed. However, this is a big generation, and I don't think I got as many as potentially as I thought I might have had. And then in terms of the legendaries, again, we got a good amount before moving on to Generation 6. X and Y has a very small Pokedex to begin with. However, I did forget about Mega Evolutions. I don't think they ever featured on Reverse Holo cards though, so I think I'm okay there. In terms of legendaries, we got 3, and I think I'll collect the different forms of Zygarde as well. Now moving on to Sun and Moon. This generation I wasn't worried about at all. When I first got back into TCG, I ended up trying to complete Sun and Moon base just by ripping packs alone. As you can tell, I was very naive to the ball rate back then. However, it ended up working in my favour for this particular challenge, as the majority of my bulk here is just Sun and Moon base reverse holos, which I pulled, which is so cool. And then for legendaries, we got 2. Now we're going to be moving on to Generation 8, which is Sword and Shield, the final generation to feature yellow borders in the TCG. And because the majority of my bulk was from this era, that meant these Pokemon featured very heavily, meaning that I believe this was the most successful generation throughout this entire challenge, which I guess would completely make sense. And in terms of legendaries, we had 5. Now, moving on to the final generation for this challenge, Generation 9, the first generation to feature silver borders in the English TCG. Of course, Japan have had silver borders for years and years now. Because this is the current print and the latest generation, this means that these Pokemon are going to be featured a lot more heavily on these cards. And also, Scarlet and Violet introduced double reverse holo slots, so there was more cards in general for me to be able to select from. That's all of the time lapses. Back to future me.
Pablo is ready to help today, aren't you, baby? You're going to help me? Put all the cards in the binder? Yes. Oh boy. These are massive, by the way. They are absolutely huge. They're the same ones I use for my master set of Evolving Skies, which is going so well. Basically, these 5 binders will hold up to 2,400 cards, so I will have a living dex to last me basically a lifetime. Another 1,000 more Pokemon. Just finished Gen 1. It took Okay, it only took about 20 minutes or so, which wasn't too bad. Actually, no, it was about 30. But, okay, this is where we're at. Missing a couple of the starters, a lot missing from this page, a lot of the other forms as well. But I think overall, considering this is just bulk and they have to be reverse holos, I don't think it's too bad. And they have to be reverse holos with the yellow borders, so nothing from Scarlet Violet, which I have way more bulk of. I don't think it's too bad. Okay, this really isn't taking as long as maybe I thought it was going to. What time is it now? Okay, cool. Yeah, this isn't taking me very long at all. Which is probably a good thing, because I really thought it was going to take ages. This is Gen 2. I'll probably just do an update at the end now, once I've gone through everything. On to Gen 3. So we've just finished the first binder about 3 o'clock, so it didn't take too long. So we've basically gotten up to halfway through Gen 4. What for? Second binder done. This one is looking so much more empty than the other ones. Oh my goodness. It's okay, but there's one page with the Sun and Moon Pokemon that's coming up that is just all the Ultra Beasts, and I have not a single reverse holo of the Ultra Beasts, so I will have to be doing some research on that, but it's okay. It's a good start to a second binder. Yeah, this is the bit I was like, huh. But yeah, we're now into Sword and Shield. I finally made it onto the last generation, so the first generation with the silver borders. And I've also noticed, like, the silver bordered cards all seem to bow really obviously. I've had these cards lying out maybe for like the past month whilst I waited to get these binders, and they're all quite badly bowing, at least compared to the old cards, yellow borders. So hopefully at least being in the binder will flatten them down, but yeah, very interesting, especially in my bulk, they're all bent. It has just gone 4 o'clock and I have finished doing the Pokedex binder of what I have currently in reverse holo forms, which is good. But since I sorted my bulk, a new set came out which was Surging Sparks, so I just went through my ETB to see if I had any more. I had 2 more cards, which is really cool. These 2 guys were extra ones I needed. I also think that as well as Surging Sparks coming, as well as Surging Sparks, I haven't checked my bulk since Shrouded Fable came out, because I've just quickly gone through my Shrouded Fable bulk and I found 2 more cards which can go in the binder. I think I'm caught up now. Did I just sit on? I don't know, but that was kind of scary. Hello everyone! It is a couple of days later since I was putting all of my Pokemon cards in the binders. I have 3 12 pocket Volt X binders here, full of all of my bulk reverse holos that I sorted through. Let's go through binder 1, starting with Gen 1. We did okay. Again, I want to stress my aim of the challenge was to do the first 8 generations before Scarlet Violet as reverse holo with the yellow borders. So of course I have a lot of bulk from Scarlet and Violet that I could have used to fill up these gaps, absolutely, but I chose not to because I want to keep it all yellow until we move on into the Scarlet Violet era. So I feel like I could have completed more of this challenge if I had used my Scarlet and Violet bulk, but I didn't want to. Technically, if I had used Scarlet and Violet reverse holos, it would have been so much easier because obviously you get 2 in a pack. No, the yellow borders will look nice and tidy. I need to not think about what could have been. Whoops. Let's just go through. So again, this is my bulk from basically the start of Sword and Shield era, maybe a little bit of Sun and Moon, just all the packs I've opened, just from ETBs to ETBs, and these are all of Generation 1, which I think I did quite well on. Oh, this was a pain. I went through, there are regional variants now for Pokemon such as Taurus, who technically only have a silver border. I think my math is correct about how many spaces I've left for certain Pokemon, but only time will tell, and of course there'll be eventual more regional variants from different generations. And then we're moving on to Gen 2, starting down here. I'm going to go through these pretty quick just because I have a lot of Pokemon to get through. I think Gen 2 also was quite went quite well. And then we get to Gen 3. I think this performed a bit weaker, quite a lot weaker. Not the weakest generation, but not bad, not the greatest either. Now we're getting to Gen 4, which I thought would be one of the better ones because of obviously like Astral Radiance, Brilliant Stars with the Legends Arceus game, etc. being very heavily involved. It was okay, it wasn't the best, it wasn't bad. So my first binder ended up holding basically halfway through up to Gen 4, which is really good. Then let's go to binder 2, where we continue on with Gen 4. These are really heavy and uncomfortable to show. Okay, this will do. Yeah, Gen 4 wasn't too bad. Maybe towards the end a little bit there. Surprised I don't have an Arceus reverse. Well, I do, but they're in my Arceus binder. Then we're going on to Black and White, which was one of the eras I was worried about the most, but actually was not too bad. Surprised me, actually. Oh my goodness. I can't show these. But overall, it was a really fun challenge. It's taken me a long time to finish, actually. Just because going through all of your bulk from ETBs is never fun, and trying to remember if you've got one of each Pokemon and if you've missed any. I've probably still got some I've missed, but I gave it a good go. Oh, X and Y. X and Y was the era I was worried about the most, for good reason. I really struggled with X and Y. So then we're getting over to Sun and Moon era. Sun and Moon era I wasn't too worried about because I essentially tried to complete the Sun and Moon base set by ripping packs. I was very naive to the pull rate, but I definitely got a lot of reverse holos, and I think I completed most of the set. Apart from, all the expensive cards. Then we're going into Sword and Shield. Again, probably the best era for me because that's where the majority of my bulk is. That completes from halfway through Gen 4 to basically Gen 8. Jeez, Louise, Sun, I can't see. I hope you can see because I can't. I'm going into the third and final binder, which holds the rest of the Sword and Shield era and also starts Scarlet and Violet. Yeah, this was definitely one of the easier sets to sort. I'm not presenting this very well. Legendaries. Again, Blood Moon, Ursaluna technically goes here. Not with Ursa Ring. And it's confusing, but it's okay. And then we start Scarlet and Violet, which I have a lot of bulk for, so this was not too bad either. And then I think I look through these binders and I'm like, oh, maybe I haven't done that good a job. And then I realised I have pulled all of these cards like myself. This is all from my personal bulk as reverse holoed as a collector over the past 5 years. I feel like I've done a pretty good job. That was my Pokemon binder challenge of can I complete the Pokedex with reverse holos only with yellow borders and scarlet violet borders. That's a bit of a mouthful. That doesn't sound very catchy. Technically I failed the challenge. However, I think I've made a good start to my Pokedex binder, which I think is such a cool thing to have. Maybe I'll put on screen here how many cards I actually completed once I've done a bit of a count up. Again, a huge shout out to Deep Pocket Monster for the inspiration for this challenge. I love watching his binder videos, they're so fun. I think the community loves watching them as well. Definitely a fun challenge and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this looks in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed and I will see you next time.